Hey, good evening. It's JC with Wax Poetic Pro Wrestling. Haven't actually done a video, uh, actually in about a year since the last time there was a major, well, I shouldn't say the last time, but the start of the major CM Punk drama uh, a year ago at Brawl Out. We had a discussion panel. The only video that we've done actually so far, I've actually been getting my studio here together to start doing these videos regularly, obviously. So this is my first chance to really do this, and based off of last night's debut, surprising somewhat debut of CM Punk. Obviously, there was rumblings that he was going to be returning to WWE. Obviously, nothing was confirmed going into last night until it was basically upon us at the end of the show. So, in retrospect, it was one of the best kept secrets in recent memory for pro wrestling. It was a genuine surprise when he came out at the end of the War Games match last night. Obviously, as everybody knows, Triple H actually produced the last few minutes of the program just to keep the surprise intact for that big moment when he came out at the end of that match. Obviously, the Chicago crowd went absolutely apeshit, as they should. So this is basically a reaction video to him debuting in WWE. Now, over the last few years, my interest in WWE has been very, very limited. I have been continuing to watch the pay-per-views and kind of fast-forwarding, skimming Raw and SmackDown, reading reports and that kind of thing, kind of picking and choosing what I watch as far as WWE content, and I've been mostly digesting AEW and New Japan and a few other things. I digest a lot of wrestling, so between all the stuff I watch, I only have a certain amount of time. But obviously, with this debut in WWE, I should say return, this is going to pique the interest of every wrestling fan across the board, including AEW fans, obviously. With Cody being there and now CM Punk being there, there's a lot going on there. We are going into WrestleMania season, so naturally their ratings are going to be up now with CM Punk in the fold. And that's actually a very good thing for their company in the short term, because this is generally a lull period going into Royal Rumble. Over the next 2 months is one of the lull periods. So to have CM Punk on television, doing what he does each week, possibly maybe building towards a debut in the December pay-per-view, or possibly he's just coming back at Royal Rumble to do his first match at Royal Rumble. Obviously, we're going to find out here shortly, tomorrow, as I'm recording this. This is Sunday night after Survivor Series 2023. And how I feel about it personally, I mean, obviously Punk has his issues. I'm actually, just to preface this, I'm a big CM Punk fan. I have been my whole life. But even I recognize he has a bit of a problematic personality. He lets his emotions get the best of him a lot of times, and I think that's been the issue. I think in principle, a lot of the issues that he had in AEW, I can understand him having the issues that he had in those specific situations. But at the same time, you gotta hold yourself back. You gotta temper yourself a bit in those situations. And I think that was ultimately his downfall. It wasn't necessarily that he was right or he was wrong. obviously you can't bury the entire company in a media scrum and expect everything's going to be hunky-dory after that. And, obviously his reaction to other things that happened, his reaction caused more of an issue than the actual issues that he was actually having, which ultimately led to him leaving the company. But enough about that. As far as him being in WWE, I feel as if at this stage of his career, I feel like this is the best place for him at his age and his vulnerability to injury. WWE is the best place for him going forward, because I'm assuming that he's going to be on a limited schedule. I don't know why he would sign a contract that he didn't have a limited schedule on. At his age and at his drawing power and star status, I'm assuming that was something that he would probably try to work out. The kind of workload that Edge was seeing is probably the workload that he'll see, specifically after WrestleMania. I believe over the next 6 months he will be closer to full time, at least on weekly television. Maybe not as far as having matches, but as far as being on weekly television, I believe that he'll be there. After that, I think he's going to be used sparingly, like I said, which is a good thing for him. So having him in the fold is obviously going to draw ratings. It's going to increase attendance. There's a lot of fresh matchups there for him to have. A lot of people that he's never wrestled or maybe hasn't wrestled in years. Obviously, the first thing, Seth Rollins, obviously, they're working towards something there with him. But there's so many other possibilities. Sami Zayn. Cody Rhodes, obviously, is a big one just because of his connection with AEW and his connection to the Elite. The TV ratings of a interaction between Cody and Punk would be something for the ages, I think. And then there's, like I said, there's fresh matchups abound. Drew McIntyre, Damian Priest, Finn Balor, down the line. And actually one that people aren't really thinking of right now, which would actually, I think, is a direction that they maybe would go to at WrestleMania, would be him versus Kevin Owens, because of Kevin Owens' connection to the Elite as well, or the Young Bucks specifically, and Adam Cole, when they had their group in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. So I feel like Steen would maybe be a better fit for a feud in the near future. And then maybe the Cody match, that you would probably save that maybe for SummerSlam this coming year, would be a match maybe you would do down the road there, probably for Cody's title, as obviously at this point it looks like he'd be penciled in to end Roman's reign, no pun intended, obviously, at WrestleMania this year. So I feel like overall this is a great move for WWE. I agree with, I was listening to Meltzer last night, and he said the optics of this for AEW is not good, to casual fans and really hardcore fans alike. It almost feels like that they're losing something to WWE, I guess, on the surface, and that's how it's going to be perceived in a lot of ways. So it will hurt the company, I believe, AEW going forward. They have enough problems as it is. Obviously, they don't need any more problems. But what this also does is creates opportunities for wrestlers leaving the company eventually, or having their contracts up. Drew McIntyre, not to reference Dave Meltzer again, but he said to be a free agent, to be Drew McIntyre in 2024 is a great place to be, because obviously WWE wants to retain him because they don't want him going to AEW, and AEW obviously would want him because of his star power. So it'd be very interesting to see how they book Drew McIntyre moving forward here in the next 6 months. because I think his contract is going to be coming up in April or after Mania, I believe, somewhere around that time period. So do they try to retain him by maybe throwing him a bone? Do they bury him at Mania? And if they bury him or he loses convincingly, does that mean that excuse me, you can see the writing on the wall at that point that they're not going to keep him. So it's a very interesting time to be a wrestling fan. I believe that AEW just has to, going forward, maybe has to just weather the storm and do what they do and try to continue to improve. This is a company that has a 60 plus year head start on you. So to expect them to make up ground so quickly, especially right now after this just happened, as long as they can tread water, continue to keep their base, and just keep chugging forward, I think they will be fine. The CM Punk thing, like I said, everything seems like him and Triple H have spoken, obviously, for an hour, and I'm assuming that they know each other, have an understanding going forward, to work together. Obviously, Triple H is not as much of a pushover as Tony Khan if there's an issue. Obviously, he's not going to have any problem letting CM Punk know that there's an issue. And when he needs to put his foot down, he'll put his foot down. It's so strange, though, just because Punk was so anti-establishment. And now it's almost like he's older and the stability is more of an appealing thing to him now because he's in a better position. So it's a very just strange dynamic all around. But CM Punk to WWE is a good short-term move. Obviously, as they said, it's what the fans want. It does create business. It should create ratings and fresh matchups and intriguing television. So overall, I think it's a wonderful move for WWE in the short term, and with their leadership structure and the enormity and the professional nature which they do business, it should not be an issue to get the most out of what they can get out of CM Punk. And I feel like they're the only ones that can actually do that right now. As far as one of the two big companies. It's interesting because Edge is actually, it's almost as if they traded Edge for CM Punk. And Edge, I think, is more of a model employee, and somebody that never really was on the indies or has never really been anywhere other than WWE for the last 30 years. So for him to get an opportunity to go out and do something a little outside the box is probably better for him long term anyways. And Punk needs structure and strong leadership, and that's what WWE provides, as well as strong matchups and more money. It's just a shame that he couldn't have continued on in AEW because I feel it's a better fit for his style and how he views pro wrestling. But ultimately, I think that the way AEW is ran, CM Punk just can't deal with it, apparently. So that's fine. Everybody goes where they're needed or where they feel they're going to be best utilized. So I feel like this is going to work out good for both companies, going both ways. But in the short term, this does kind of hurts AEW optics wise, definitely. But again, great move for WWE. I think fans across the board are going to be interested in watching Monday Night Raw specifically to see what happens in this whole situation, because it's definitely going to be a wild ride. So going forward, I'm going to be doing probably a This Week in AEW every week. This week in All Elite or something along those lines. I'm tinkering around with some names. At the end of the week, I might be doing a wrap-up show every week for AEW, and then maybe do a small segment at the end of the show where I talk about everything else in pro wrestling, because there's a lot to cover. I'm not trying to play favorites here, but I do generally watch AEW mostly, but I try to watch a lot of things, so I consume a lot of wrestling. That's what this is about, though. Wax Poetic Pro Wrestling is about the passion, intelligent and passionate analysis of pro wrestling on a weekly basis, and trying to give people a different kind of perspective on pro wrestling. So next week, I'm going to try to maybe do a wrap-up or a video vlog. A couple friends of mine, we're going to Collision in Erie, Pennsylvania next Saturday. So I'm going to try to maybe do some videos at the end of next week. You can check me out on YouTube, WX or WPW Pro Wrestling on YouTube, Wax Poetic Pro Wrestling. I also have a Facebook page, Wax Poetic Pro Wrestling. You can find it. You can follow me. I haven't really been doing a lot of content recently, but I'm going to try to increase my content output here and actually try to get this whole thing going. Just had a lot happen in last year, been very busy. So we're going to try to do this going forward. I got my little setup over here, my stuff over here. We're going to get the camera angles a little better moving forward. But yeah, exciting stuff here at the end of 2023 between the Continental Classic and all the other stuff. World's End coming up, Royal Rumbles, WrestleMania around the corner, of course, Wrestle Kingdom. There's a lot going on here, and I'd like to be here every week, waxing poetically about the fine art and that is pro wrestling. So I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good day.